Hello everyone, and welcome to this new video series on the Korean War. I'm your host, Ron May, author, historian, and speaker on war history and the stories of those who served. This is episode 4 on the Korean War, and our focus will be on those involved in operating the big guns and big trucks of the war. The Korean conflict is often referred to as the Forgotten War. However, it is also remembered as the Artillery War because of the large role artillery had in combat. Ronald Mercer of Mooresville, Indiana, was heavily involved in that aspect of the Korean War. In November 1950, Mercer was drafted into the Army, placed into the artillery, and assigned to the 7th Army Division. He arrived in Korea in the spring of 1951. While in country, he was asked if he had any college experience. Since he had some, the Army assumed he had taken advanced math classes and could solve difficult math equations, so they assigned him to the Fire Direction Center. "I had some college," explained Mercer, "but I hadn't taken much math. But I learned real quick." The Fire Direction Center was the communication and control hub that coordinated the firing of howitzer batteries in a company. There were generally 6 howitzers to a battery. Each FDC had 8 enlisted men and 2 officers. Mercer was assigned to the Headquarters Company Fire Direction Center, which oversaw 3 artillery batteries. When there was need for artillery support for the infantry, field observers attached to ground units called the request to the FDC over wired field phones or radios. The men in the FDC then quickly went to work computing the firing data. They solved mathematical equations with special slide rules, sketched angles and lines of fire on paper with a protractor, and then set and communicated the proper elevation, angle, deflection, and fire direction for the howitzers to fire their rounds in support of the infantry. Sometimes Mercer could see the guns he was directing from the Fire Direction Center, and sometimes he couldn't. They were too far away. Either way, the directions from the Fire Direction Center helped greatly with the aiming and firing of the big guns of the Korean War. Directing guns was not the only thing that occupied Mercer's mind. One thing that really stuck in my mind was the little kids picking food out of garbage cans, he said in an interview. "We would throw out some of our K-ration food and they would scramble for it." The living conditions for the children broke his heart. Mercer served in Korea from April 1951 to April 1952. He was honorably discharged from Fort Sill in Oklahoma in August 1952. Mercer married and started a family after the war. He became a Methodist pastor and served congregations in central and southern Indiana for 34 years, retiring in 1994. Mercer didn't think much about his involvement in the Korean War until one day, some years ago, when he was sitting in front of the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. He was a veteran on an Indy Honor flight. A young Korean couple came up to him and asked him if he had served in the war. When Mercer said he had, the Korean man replied, "Thank you. I might have been speaking Chinese if not for you." Thinking back on the moment, Mercer said, "That was part of the good side of my service in the war." While Ron Mercer was handling the big guns in Korea, Lloyd Sichting had his hands full with maintaining and driving the big trucks in Korea. A native of Morgan County, Indiana, he was drafted in 1950 and sent to Korea with the Army's 1st Cavalry Division's service company. When he arrived in country, a 6-wheel Army wrecker was waiting for him. For the next 18 months, Sikting served as a mechanic and a driver. His life revolved around maintaining Jeeps as well as 3/4-ton trucks. When he wasn't under the hood working on one of the vehicles, he was in the cab of the company's only wrecker, driving down dirt roads to pick up stranded vehicles, dropping off supplies for combat troops, or following a convoy of replacement troops to the front lines. I had to drag disabled trucks in and work on them and get them ready to go out again, Sikting said with nonchalance during an interview. But there was nothing nonchalant about the hours he worked or the combat environment he was driving in. Days, nights, it didn't make any difference, he said. When you had to go, you had to go. It was not uncommon for Sikting to see enemy mortar rounds landing in front of him or to his side as he picked up a stranded vehicle or dropped off troops and supplies. The enemy rounds sometimes found the trucks. Sikting had to extricate one driver from a truck that had been blown over on impact from a mortar. On one occasion, mortar rounds were coming down near us, he recalled. We asked a soldier on site where the front line was. "You're sitting on it," was the soldier's candid response. Sikting wasn't always watching combat from the windshield inside the cab of his truck. He sometimes saw and experienced it personally on foot. When a friend of Sikting's was told to return to the front lines after recovering from battle injuries, the man was understandably reluctant. So, Sikting volunteered to go to the front in his buddy's place. While at the front lines, he proceeded up a mountain when a mortar round landed near him and blew him 25 feet back down the hill. It seemed like I was sailing for a while, Sikting recalled. When he landed, he discovered that he was bloody from shrapnel and mud was caked all over his eyes. Sikting spent several weeks being treated for the injuries caused by the shrapnel from the mortar round. His parents received the dreaded Western Union telegram from Washington, D.C., informing them of their son's injury. Fortunately, his injuries were not life-threatening. He recovered and returned to his unit to finish out his service. Sikting returned home with his Purple Heart. He married, raised a family, and worked as a truck manager for 25 years. Lloyd Sikting died in 2018 at the age of 92. If you enjoy veteran stories, check out my World War II trilogy, Our Service, Our Stories, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. The books are available for purchase on my website, ronaldpmay.com. To contact me for questions or to schedule me for a speaking engagement, email me at ron@ronaldpmay.com. Also, be sure to check out all my other videos on my YouTube channel at World War II History and Stories with Ron May. You will find a link to my videos on the YouTube tab from the homepage of my website. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Please share it with others who you think may be interested. In December 2026, I will resume the World War II series, which will be entitled World War II at 85, and it will be a look at the first 2 years of the war. See you next time for Episode 5 of the Korean War and those who fought in it.